Jesus said something about lust so shocking that most Christians pretend he never said it. He took a simple look, a single thought, and called it adultery. Not potential adultery, not leading to adultery, but actual adultery happening right there in that moment. Most people read this verse, get uncomfortable, and quickly move on because what Jesus said here completely destroys how we think about temptation and sin. But here's the thing. This uncomfortable truth is actually the key to breaking free from chains you might not even realize you're wearing. Listen to his exact words in Matthew 5:28. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. That word already should stop you in your tracks. Not will commit or might lead to, already committed. Past tense, done deal. And that changes absolutely everything about how we understand this battle. Think about what Jesus just did here. Adultery destroys marriages, ruins families, devastates entire lives. It's one of the most serious sins in existence, something that can end relationships and shatter trust forever. But Jesus says you don't need to touch anyone, you don't need to leave your house, you don't even need to speak a single word. One lustful look, and it's already done in God's eyes. This makes people squirm because it's manageable to say, "I've never cheated." That feels controllable, external, something you can point to and measure. But Jesus goes internal, straight to the place where no one else can see. He's not just after your actions. He wants your thoughts, your desires, the secret places of your heart, where you think you're safe from judgment. And here's why this is so radical. We live in a world that doesn't just tolerate lust, it celebrates it. Billboards use it to sell cars. Movies glorify it as romance. Social media algorithms profit from it by keeping you scrolling. Lust has been normalized, even encouraged as natural and healthy. But Jesus refuses to normalize what destroys the soul. And he's telling us the battlefield isn't in bedrooms or hotels, it's in your mind. And most people are losing that war without even knowing they're fighting. Picture this scene. A man scrolling his phone late at night, wife sleeping peacefully beside him. He's not physically unfaithful, he's not meeting anyone, he's not even talking to another woman. But he lingers on that image, that video, that thought that just popped up on his screen. I'm not hurting anyone, he tells himself. This is harmless, it's just looking, just thinking. But something deadly happens in that moment that he doesn't even recognize. His heart starts drifting away from his wife. His mind creates secret worlds where fantasy becomes more appealing than reality. Jesus says right there, in that hidden chamber of the heart where no one else can see, adultery begins its destructive work. And here's the terrifying truth. Lust never stays small. It never stays contained. It never stays harmless. A look becomes a lingering stare. A thought becomes an obsession. A desire becomes an action. It's like cancer, it always spreads, always grows, always demands more. That's exactly why Jesus didn't just say, "Don't commit adultery like the old law did." He went deeper, warning us at the source, before the fire starts consuming everything we hold dear. But here's what most people completely miss when they read this passage. Jesus wasn't trying to shame you into feeling guilty about being human. He wasn't adding more impossible rules to an already difficult life. He was pointing you toward freedom, real freedom, by showing you exactly where the real enemy lives and how to defeat it before it defeats you. See, Jesus understood something we constantly forget. All sin starts inside, in the hidden places of the heart, before it ever shows up in our actions. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, "I think I'll destroy my marriage today." It begins with small compromises, quiet thoughts, hidden looks that seem innocent but create pathways for destruction. That's exactly why Jesus went straight for the heart, because your heart is mission control for your entire life. Whatever you consistently feed it will grow stronger. Whatever you starve will grow weaker. Your eyes are the doorway to your soul, and when your eyes constantly consume lust, your soul becomes enslaved to it. This is why Jesus used such extreme language in the very next verse. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Now, was he literally telling us to blind ourselves? Of course not. But he was showing us just how serious this spiritual battle really is, how much is at stake when we play games with temptation. He was saying, don't negotiate with lust, don't make excuses for it, don't leave doors cracked open thinking you can control it. Deal with it completely and decisively, or it will deal with you and it won't show mercy. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to quit smoking, but keeping a pack of cigarettes in your pocket, just in case, or for emergencies. How long do you honestly think that commitment would last? The first moment of stress, the first craving, the first weak moment you'd reach for what you kept close. It's exactly the same with lust. If you keep secret stashes on your phone, if you don't set real boundaries with your devices, if you don't actively guard your mind and eyes, you're feeding the very thing that's trying to destroy your relationships, your integrity, your peace. Jesus was saying, don't just fight when temptation shows up at your door. Starve it at the source, so it never gets strong enough to knock you down. This isn't about managing sin better. It's about declaring war on it and fighting to win. So, how do we actually live this out? How do we take Jesus' teaching and turn it into real victory in our daily lives? First, you have to guard your eyes like your life depends on it, because it does. The first look might be accidental, something that just happens in our sex-saturated culture. But the second look, the lingering stare, the decision to keep looking, that's a choice. And Jesus said, lust begins with that choice. So victory begins with turning away every single time, no exceptions, no negotiations. Second, you have to guard your thoughts with the same intensity. You can't control every thought that enters your mind. Temptation will come, images will flash, desires will surface. But you absolutely can control what you dwell on, what you entertain, what you allow to take root and grow. Don't let lustful thoughts set up permanent residence in your mind, evict them immediately. Third, you have to guard your heart by filling it with something stronger than lust. Here's the key. You can't just remove lust and leave an empty space. Nature abhors a vacuum. You must replace it with God's word, with prayer, with pure and beautiful things that lift your soul instead of dragging it down. And finally, you have to get radical about it. Jesus used extreme language because this requires extreme measures. Delete the apps that tempt you, change your routes to avoid triggers, end friendships that pull you toward sin, put accountability software on your devices. Whatever feeds lust in your life must go, and there can be no compromise on this. Let's be completely honest here, this is hard, maybe the hardest thing you'll ever do. Maybe you've already lost battles in this area. Maybe you feel guilty and ashamed. Maybe you've tried and failed so many times you're ready to give up. But here's what changes everything. Here's the hope that makes this possible. Jesus didn't just diagnose the problem and leave you to fix it on your own. He became the cure. He became the solution. He became your strength when you have none left. He didn't come to shame you into trying harder with willpower that always runs out. He came to give you a completely new heart, a clean conscience, a fresh start that's not based on your performance, but on His grace. The same Jesus who said you've already committed adultery in your heart also said, I have come to set the captives free. What feels impossible for you is not only possible through Him, it's guaranteed for everyone who comes to Him with a sincere heart. Here's the truth that most people ignore because it's uncomfortable. Jesus wasn't making your life harder by teaching this. He was showing you where real freedom actually lives. He wasn't adding more rules to burden you. He was revealing chains you didn't even know were cutting off your circulation. Lust promises pleasure, but delivers slavery every single time. It promises satisfaction, but leaves you emptier than before. Jesus offers what looks like restriction, but gives actual freedom. The freedom to love purely, to live with integrity, to have relationships built on truth instead of hidden shame. Most people ignore this teaching because it cuts too close to the bone, because it demands too much change. But comfort was never the goal, freedom is. So here's the question that matters. What's growing in your heart right now? What are you feeding with your eyes, your thoughts, your time, your attention? Jesus is calling you to something higher, not to a life of white-knuckled religion where you try harder and fail more, but to genuine purity that flows from a transformed heart. Not external rule following that exhausts you, but internal transformation that energizes and frees you. The question isn't whether you can do this perfectly. You can't, and Jesus knows that. The question is whether you'll let Him do what only He can do. Change your heart from the inside out, break the chains that bind you, and give you victory where you've only known defeat. If this message challenged you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, Jesus doesn't just want to change your behavior. He wants to set you completely free.